Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Every Day is a Story of Its Own podcast. Joey Medee here, creative and storyteller. Tonight's guest I have been talking about just about every week since I relaunched EDS, and that is Berman Jr., his indie pop project called The Marble Tea, which is, he'll tell you more about it, but an Emily Dickinson poem, I believe, The Marble Tea. And I talk about Knight just about every week because the intro music Knight composed for a show of ours that only had one performance, How All This Bullying Began, but it was a musical that incorporated Around the World in 80 Days and went back to caveman times and kind of said, at a time where we were talking about bullying a lot. Not that bullying isn't going on now. Obviously, it is. It's the national pastime, bullying. But in schools, it was much more of a conversation. I was doing a bunch of bullying education stuff with the theater company. So for a summer camp project, we got to write How All This Bullying Began. And this is just a little bit of music from it. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and play this little 11-second bumper. Knight and I have a lot to talk about. We have known each other for about 22, 23 years. We have collaborated on a lot of stuff. I put a little slideshow together, but in the beginning of the show, Knight's going to talk about his indie music career. He's put out a lot of discs. It's sort of how I first met him. There are stories within stories here. There's a 2-person book club, and there's a charming little used bookstore that, of course, not these books on this print behind me, but in this room and in my other 2 library rooms in the Creative Cottage, there's probably 15% of the books that I own to this day are bookbin books, which a stack of books never cost quite what it should, thanks to Knight and his lovely wife, Kate. So we've known them for about 23 years. We'll talk about how we met, the circumstances there, something that really cool happened. So there's some teaser. Here comes the 11-second bumper with music by Knight. With copyright stuff, we got dinged. I had an actor on who used a little bit of music for one of his acting reels, and we're paying royalties to the people for that little couple of seconds of music. So it's really difficult to play music on the show, but Knight will tell you where to go to hear his music. So here's 11 seconds of it. That's how this bullying began. That's how. So there it is. So I'm going to read his bio, and then I'm going to bring him on because I know that's why you're all here. Berman Jr. is an Alabama-born songwriter and composer living on the Jersey Shore who also records as the Marble Tea. When I first heard his music, I thought he was from England because his Southern accent translated a bit, his Alabama accent translated a bit to English. So when I met him, I was like, "Oh, you're Southern. You're not English." But hey, we know, same difference. He was the company composer for the 7 Stories Theater Company, my outfit, providing music and sound design for numerous stage productions and short films and other projects too, escape rooms, and I put together a nice slideshow to show you some of our projects. He composed and recorded the original score and contributed songs to the award-winning independent feature film MHZ or Megahertz, which chronicled the adventures of a disc jockey's relationship with the eccentric inventor Nikola Tesla in the afterlife. I listen to that soundtrack to this day. It's a little ambient, it's a little electronic. It's very, very good. His instrumental compositions have been used in escape rooms, podcasts, book trailers, and internet cartoons. And I'm happy to say a lot of my material under those headings he's done music for. Songs by his indie pop project, The Marble Tea, have been featured in independent films, children's videos, and on British television. Of that project, he says, "Drawing mandalas and watching Captain Kangaroo. That's pretty much what it's like in here. I enjoy writing songs about my cats and cartoon insects, but I'm also fond of feeling up the tentacles that lead to the oneness of existence." That's the Marble Tea experience, and it certainly is, and we'll tell you how to get lots and lots of Marble Tea music. The Marble Tea's debut CD, the I'm Batman EP, was selected as CD of the Year by the Independence Music Club in 2004. That's one you're going to want to hunt down and listen to. He currently spends his time as a library assistant and computer consultant who bicycles early mornings along the shore in my own stomping grounds in Jersey, formulating imaginary songs in his head and looking forward to the day they make their musical way into the open air. As you can see from his bio, he is a poet. Please welcome my good friend, Knight Berman Jr., who I'm sure during the show I'll refer to as Doc. Hey, Doc.
Hey, Doc. Thanks for having me on, and thanks for that introduction.
Hey, you did most of the heavy lifting on that one. I was so excited when I got your materials over the weekend to prepare for the show, and I was like, this bio sets the tone for everything. You truly are a mystical man. Let's start with so you and Kate had this charming bookstore. Kate and I we went to the same high school, and she was a couple of years ahead of me, so we never crossed paths. But in Point Pleasant, and the bookshop was in Point Pleasant Beach, and someone I've talked to about on the show through the years, my Aunt Annette Becker, said there is this bookstore, and it has incense, and it has all this charming stuff, and the owners are just amazing, and I have to take you down there. And she brought us into the store, and you were acquainted with her. And I don't know if you were there the first time, but we were talking to Kate, and you and I had all these artistic overlaps. We met soon after, went on to, man, so many collaborations. You and I have a kind of a big deal hybrid musical cinematic international live streaming event that's being funded right now. So we'll talk about that. So our collaboration is about to break big next year, which is nice.
Fantastic. That's great.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah, I remember meeting you at the bookstore, you and Tanya, because you're right, I wasn't there the first time, but it was Kate's store actually, and I was not always around there, but usually. And you guys put on a poetry reading in the back room. I don't know if you remember that.
Sure.
Remember? Yeah, and so that was when I first met you. I was like, this guy looks like John Travolta. I like him.
Well, thank you, sir. I didn't know that. Wow. So it was the poetry reading was that early on, or it took a little bit, I guess, to meet. And it was right around the time I have them ordered. I Am Batman and Fantastic Day. And that's correct, right? Yeah. You had given me a demo. I just had a demo, I think, before I Am Batman initially came out, or maybe Kate handed it to me, something like that. And I remember going home and I was like, this guy's cool. He's got this whole English thing going on. I really love it. It's like Herman's Herman. Like that. Yeah. Cool. It was really cool. And then I met you and found out you're very proudly from Montgomery, Alabama.
That's right. In the deep South, Dad, all the way down in the middle. Yeah.
When and how the heck did you wind up in the Jers?
Well, it's that same old story. There was a girl that I met, who Kate, and she had, I'd kind of visited her a few times, and she was, I was itching for a move, and she was like, well, come up here, I have this bookstore, we're by the beach, and I'm like, okay, we'll give it a try. And, we did, and she's, how she is, she's just the most wonderful girl you could ever meet. So
it really is
an easy thing to say, yeah, this is where I need to be. So
yeah, so you guys have been together going on 30 years?
25 years. 25
yeah.
years. Yeah.
Very good. And she finally made an honest man of you during the lockdown.
That's right.
Just a formality, mates. So we call each other Doc, and I'm sure we're just gonna do it out of habit because we do it all the time. Like I don't ever go, hey, Knight, how you doing? Like that's very foreign. But speaking of that, Knight, Knight, such a cool, like who wouldn't want that name? And obviously you're a junior. How did your dad wind up with that name?
My grandparents had a friend whose name was, I forget, I think it was Theodore Knight was his name. He was an attorney in the Scottsboro Brothers trial in Alabama, if you're familiar with that.
Yeah.
And so apparently I think he had some sons, or maybe a son who died or something like that. And they were close friends with him, and they wanted to kind of honor him some way. And my grandmother did not want to have her boy called Teddy. So she said, well, maybe we'll call him Knight. So she called him Knight, took the last name instead. So
very cool. And you have certainly lived up to that. You are one of my closest friends in the world, and certainly a mensch. So you live up to that whole night. I write about nights, but you are night and you live it. So
Jester nights for sure.
yeah. So somewhere early on, you started calling me the doctor or doc. And that came from you, from a lineage that you had. So tell the folks about that.
Yeah, that was, well, a buddy of mine, Cliff, I think he got it from William Burroughs. There's a thing where he
Nice.
says doctor or this or that. So he would always call people doctor, and I think I picked that up from him and I called you doctor, and it kind of got shortened to doc, because we are, docs, as it were. And yeah, it just kind of went on from there. And I think you kind of developed it. You had a nice little embellishment further of that, from what I recall.
Because I always have to go a little deeper and a little wider, the audience knows that. So I bestowed upon you the full sort of alchemical old college of scholars name of Dr. Musicalis Mysticus, and I am Dr. Probiscus Profundus, because of this little boy right here. So, but anyway, I created this nice slideshow. So let's go ahead and bring that up here. I chose this skin because I thought a lot of your ambient and instrumental work, I thought this vibed with it.
Cool.
But there, everybody knows that. Here's the banner, you guys. It's behind us. But if you haven't seen it, as Knight and I were promoting the show in the last couple of days, there it is. And one of the musicals we did together in Knight's first CD there. So to honor that. And so let's get into that, Knight. So here's the Marble Tea, and I'm just going to leave the slideshow up here for a while. But you had a project prior to Marble Tea called Blonde Popsicle. Was that sort of the start of Knight's pop music journey?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, if you want to go way, way back, when I was, I don't know, first grade, and I got an electric guitar, and I loved the Monkees, and I learned ukulele chords on it. I remember coming home from the Sears or wherever, it was like I don't know if it's a K or a Silvertone, one of those old guitars, and I'm playing it in the back seat while my mom's driving. And I realized that if I played the pick near the bridge at the back, it got real twangy. And I said, "Oh, Mom, it sounds like the Monkees here." And my buddy Ken, who lived down the street from me, was learning drums. So he just had a drum pad. I mean, we're first grade. So our band was Ken on the drum pad and me with this little electric guitar. And we called ourselves the Monkees Jr. And that was nice. Like our first little band, like first grade or whatever. So, and then played, in bands through high school and all that. But yeah, Blonde Popsicle with Steve and Kenny and Jim and Clark and Brent and Chris. We had all these different drummers, but three of us, we started playing in Montgomery and moved to Atlanta because we were getting radio play there. And, played around, had a lot of fun. And then it just kind of developed on from there. As things move along, I just always liked recording, more so than performing, more so than playing out live. So,
right.
Yeah, just kind of developed from that. And once computers came around, it was easier than a 4-track machine to do the recording on. So it's kind of developed that way.
Now, for years and 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 years, and we're both a little busier now, but we would have weekly, like hour to 2 hour to 2.5 hour confabs on Sunday mornings. So it's really hard to ask you stuff that I haven't asked you a million times before and know the answers to. But here's some. So you come from Montgomery, you move to Atlanta, but that's Georgia, and it makes me think. And I don't know, because I've heard like probably over 100 of your songs. There's not a lot of REM in there. Were you influenced by REM during your journey?
Well, hugely, but mostly in the sense that here they were these Southern guys from Georgia that were not making music that was the point of it was not to be a rock star. They're just making music that they wanted to make, and so they were very influential in that way, more so than the music, because although the music was too, but yeah, there's everybody's a little bit influenced in some way. Anything you hear really kind of influences you, I suppose. But that was the big reason for being influenced by them, was just what they were doing and the way that they were doing it.
Yeah, and they're just absolutely one of my all-time favorites. Introduced to me by a guy who, so almost my entire musical education pretty much comes in 4 parts. The first part was the Columbia Record Club. So if an album looked cool or was something I heard on or my parents had on 8-track, because they were really big music lovers. My aunt and uncle had a great record collection, which is how I got introduced to like Rod Stewart and Faces and Cat Stevens, and that was all my early stuff. So there was Columbia Music Club where I got into prog rock, that kind of thing, respect Rush, so on and so forth. I love Toto and all that. Then in high school, Ralph, my buddy, introduced me to bands like The Church and The Alarm. Not introduced me, but really kind of fixed my love in The Who, and then bridging over specifically to Pete Townsend. And then it was really you who would send me these discs with so much indie music, bands I had never heard of and didn't get radio play. It was wonderful, wonderful stuff. You introduced me to the Velvet Underground. So then John Cale and all of John Cale's solo stuff, which I love so much. Then Songs for Drella, right, about Andy Warhol and yeah, all this great stuff. So thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. No, my pleasure.
So let's talk about, or have you talk about for a good long while, your musical journey through the Marble Tee. And I put up a smattering here, but let's start with the Marble Tee here, where that is you dressed as Batman. Is he kind of your guy?
Oh yeah, Batman's my guy, man. I'm Batman for sure. That's a picture from the beach when I was like, yeah, I don't know how old there, but that's John Yelverton and me and Frank Stakely and his older brother Ben. And I had a Batman Halloween costume that I think all that was left was the cowl from, by the time it's summer and you're at the beach, and I don't know where that picture came from, but I found it one day and I said, oh, that's so funny. Yeah, I'm Batman. That's me. I'm Batman. So it just seemed to kind of fit. And the song kind of came around at some point. I don't remember exactly how, but yeah, that's what that is.
Yeah. And I'm just thinking about the lyrics. My Batmobile is a Toyota Corolla. So,
and it's true. I mean, that's true. That's exactly what it is.
That was awesome. And that's how I met you. I reviewed this album, and then let's move on. Fantastic Day. This picture also tells a story, right? This is a very close friend of yours.
Yep, that's Carlton and Susie and their cat, whose name I have forgotten, unfortunately, but what a wonderful picture that is. There's no Photoshop in there. To me, it almost looks like they're flying through the sky, in like a little airplane, but of course they're driving in a car. But yeah, I just love that photo. I can't remember if Carlton or Susie had sent it to me, and I was like, please let me use that as a cover because I love it so much. And they're like, yeah, fine.
And it's great because the cat is staring off in one direction with sort of this Derek Zoolander kind of stare, and your friend Carlton's got a sort of a stone face thing going on, and she's just absolutely loving it because she's in the driver's seat. And so, what is it? If you could, well, talk about the Marble Tee. Like that is Emily Dickinson, correct?
Well, it is. When the further back you go, but I actually got it from Richard Brautigan because the first book of poetry that he published, like in the 50s, was called "Lay the Marble Tee," and that's from the Emily Dickinson poem where she says something like, I don't remember what she says, but it's something about laying the marble tee, laying it out. And I'm a big Brautigan fan, as you know, and so I thought, oh, that would be a great name for a project. Just call it the Marble Tee. And plus, since lay the marble tee, well, then, maybe I would get laid being the Marble Tee. That was the funny joke about it all, too, But yeah, so the Marble Tee, that's where that came from.
I love it. Very cool. And I've had this resurgence of listening to Counting Crows recently. And they have new material out that's really good. It's as strong as their earliest stuff, and I just listen to it all the time. But it's singing about characters, so it's almost like a musical theater, musical biography in a way. One of their most recent albums is this whole riff on these kids with aspiration, which all their stuff was. I mean, Omaha and Round Here, and so much of that was that. And that's what I love. You had an EP called Truman's Hat, so you wrote about Truman Capote. You have a song about Chrissie Hynde. You have so many different people. You have a song at the end where you sing about Natalie Wood, and it's not all you do, but it's this beautiful musical biography, I guess, expressing the people that really kind of intrigue and inspire you.
Yeah, I guess so. I've always loved songs where the singer would drop a name somewhere,
Uh-huh.
and you kind of go, "Oh, yeah, 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 I know who they're talking about," and it just kind of somehow, uh, in some way, it pulls their personality or their public image into the song a little bit and gives it another layer of something. But I just always love that, so I enjoy doing that too.
One with Amy Poehler, eating
Oh
Chinese
yeah.
food, I think, with Amy Poehler.
Mhm, that's right,
Just
that's right. That
wonderful,
was true, that
wonderful
was a dream.
surprise.
I truly
Oh,
had a dream about her eating Chinese, yeah, so that's what that was about, yeah, yeah.
yeah. So from the fantastical to the literal to the riffing upon other, the Brodigan stuff is great because I believe you pull lines from his poetry,
Mm,
to weave the song lyrics, which is wonderful.
mhm, mhm. Yeah, he did an album called Listening to Richard Brodigan that was supposed to come out on Apple Records, but right when the Beatles, split up and everything, and when that was or when I guess when Apple Records was folding, and, so I did a song called "Listening to Richard Brodigan." It's basically just lines from his poems, kind of tied together and telling his life story a little bit. So a
Yeah.
great poet. I mean, so uh, brief. Very. I don't know, almost Japanese. Like he's very, in the way that the economy of the words, and yet getting the thing out, always with a little bit of humor and a little bit of pathos too, which I really loved as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I have Brodigan on my shelf thanks to you. So again, thank
Mhm.
you, doctor.
Oh yeah, man.
Let's see what we got next year. Okay.
Yeah.
So, of course, Bob Dylan's Nashville Skyline, and you riffed on it and called it
Jersey Shoreline.
Jersey Shoreline. And that is a pretty darn good match right there.
Well, it's funny with that because I guess the year before or something, I had done that was for a year-end collection of songs because I would do a song or two every month and then put them on a disc at the end. And the first time I did it, my friend Mauricio took the photographs. We did a like a takeoff on Space Oddity by Bowie with the cover, had the red wig on and everything like that. And we were shooting this here in Point Pleasant. And for that shot, because we decided to do the Bob Dylan kind of, homage or whatever, but we're shooting it in the train parking lot, where the train station is.
Oh,
And to
nice.
get that tree there, he had to lie down on the parking lot ground, and I'm sitting on the curb with this tree right behind me. And as he's shooting, this car pulls up, and they're like, "Are you guys okay? Is everything all right?" Because Mal's down here with his camera, and they didn't know
Yeah.
what was going on. So it turned out pretty well. We got it. I wish my hand had been a little bit more curved on that, but yeah, it worked out pretty well, I think.
But that's kind of what you do. You riff, but then you twist into a slightly new direction that makes it your own. So I think
Mm,
I think that's cool. And you've done some covers, like you've done the Kinks Lazing on a
mm,
Sunday Afternoon. I don't know if that's the name of it,
mm,
but and you've done some others too, some Jazz Butcher stuff where you
mm,
absolutely love the Jazz Butcher.
mm,
And for me, let me know what you think about this. But a cover that's a spot on cover
mhm.
seems like a painting study that a student does, right?
Yeah,
And it's sometimes
yeah.
maybe better left in the studio. Like you're learning
Mhm,
things, you learn a Beatles song, so suddenly you've learned a new chord progression or a new way to shape a chord, something like that,
mhm.
something odd and unexpected to do.
Absolutely.
Make a bridge really wild. But what's your feeling on covers? Like what's your intention as a musician who does covers every once in a while?
Well, I think you're absolutely right with what you said about it, being a study kind of thing. Because when I did the Kinks song, I was trying to make that as accurate as possible to the song. So it was good for me, it was an exercise in, listening to, each instrument and trying to mimic that and get the, not just from the playing standpoint, but also from, mixing, because, mixing is so difficult sometimes. You got EQ and compression, you've got to move these sounds around. But usually a cover, I think, is best when it's a totally different take on it. Something that's not, not even really in the same kind of the feeling necessarily, something
Yeah.
like I'm trying to think if I could. Oh, you know what a good example is? Maybe you've heard it. John Cale covers Heartbreak Hotel by Elvis Presley, and he
Yeah.
does it as a dirge,
Yeah.
so it's a totally completely different thing from the way the song was initially done and how you're used to it. So I love those are the kind of covers I like the best when they're taken in a different direction.
Yeah. Yeah,
You
or
know?
the particular stamp of the instrumentation and the feel of the guitar. Like I think of Lou Reed's from David Lynch's Lost Highway does this magic moment, and it's
Oh yeah,
so insistently,
yeah.
it almost it's like Iggy Pop's The Passenger through the lens of Lou Reed doing this magic moment. It's just so insistent and percussive and
Mhm.
jangly, and so Lou Reed. So yeah, I love that. Let's check in here with the Knight. There's some messages here for you.
I know that guy. Thanks, Don. Hey, Ken, what's up?
Whoops. And there we go. So just want to keep current on that. Thank you all for
Yeah.
coming to support Knight. I hope you like what you hear, and you might want to come back or check out some of the other creatives that I'm showcasing. And that's been wonderful. So let's keep
A lot
moving
of
on
talented
here.
people. Yeah, you've got a lot of talented people in your circle. You really do.
Yeah, well, that's what a smart guy who wants to keep learning does, right? Surround yourself with talented, passionate people.
Mhm.
So here's staying home to make music to stay home to, and this was when we were all asked to stay home, as I refer to it. This is the safest way to refer to it.
Yeah. Mhm.
So tell us about this one.
Well, it's funny, and again, it's a joke and a play on words there because there's a group, the Spacemen 3, who has an album called "Taking Drugs to Make Music to Take Drugs to,"
Oh,
which I thought was
nice.
such a funny title. And to me, it just seemed, at the time, like you said, during the pandemic, it's like, well, we're staying home to make music to stay home to because we're not going anywhere. And my friend Cliff, who I mentioned earlier, with the doctor thing and William Burroughs stuff, designed these little I forget what they're called, and I'm just so bad at me, but they almost look like they're cellular kind of things in a way, but they're also like these um, little memento mori things that I think in some cultures they would leave these on the graves of their ancestors as memory things. And I'm getting the story all wrong, but he designed these. Some of these you can see like in the big picture there, you've got his sketching of it behind an actual thing that he sculpted and made of it. So he helped me just lay out the cover. It's again, the cover design itself is based on an album by a band called Crispy Ambulance. This was kind of the layout of how they had the pictures and stuff. So we kind of, made it like that. And I just love that cover. It's so different and weird. I know it's something I never would have come up with on my own. So I'm glad that he, had such an input into it. And yeah, then the songs are just a bunch of songs that were recorded during that period, when things were shut down. And I think the main impetus for us was my friend Tom. You might have met Tom Hackman.
Yeah.
His son, Woody. Tom's a little bit older than I am, even, and his son Woody had bought him a subscription to the New York Times, and he told him, he said, "Listen, if you leave the house, I'm going to cancel your subscription because you got to stay indoors because it's dangerous out there." And so there's a song called "Woody Says No" on there, and that was like based on that, and that kind of kick-started the whole idea of doing something with this whole downtime that we have where we can't really go anywhere or do anything.
Awesome. How about this one? Oops. Nope. How about this one?
The thing itself, that's another one that Cliff did the cover for. Those are his paintings there. That was, I had taken a music production course, and a guy had said, the thing he said was, you can't do the idea of the thing, you have to do the thing itself. And I've always been more like, when I write the songs, this is the idea, now I'm going to move on to the next thing, but this is the idea of what I want and move on. And he was like, no, you can't do the idea, you have to do the thing itself. So the thing itself was the cover for that. Or
That is a good segue, but I want to cover one more thing. So you turned 60 not that long ago.
Yeah, not that long ago.
Not that long ago. And Demolicious Man, right?
60
tracks, a retrospective.
Yes, and those were 60 songs that had not been released on any other, album, so it wasn't like a compilation of "Oh, here's my favorite one." This is these are things that I haven't put out, officially anywhere, so let me gather them together. It seemed like a good time to do it. There were 60 songs, I was turning 60, you know? Thank you for doing the liner notes for that. It was
Yeah.
wonderful, just great, great liner notes for that, and this is just a collage of, different things that represent, either different songs or different things that are in it.
Now
Yeah.
this is going to be a good time, and I was honored to write the liner notes, and it was great to sit down and listen to 60 songs, some of which there's a
You're a good
couple
man.
on there. There's a couple on there who I think are alternate versions of songs
Yeah.
you had released. So that's what you were talking about. Doing a cover of yourself is interesting. The Police have done that. The
Mhm.
Hooters did Hanging on a Heartbeat and redid it with a more reggae feel that I absolutely love. So that kind of thing was cool. And every once in a while, I don't think I made you too crazy, but every once in a while I'd go, "Hey, I have a question about this," or "Am I hearing this right?" or
No, I
"Oh, is
love
this
that.
inspired by?" Um, yeah. So if you guys want to check out the liner notes and see kind of my expression of 60 of Knight's songs, which was really wonderful to do. Knight's, this is a good time, and it's in the description on all the different platforms. So hello to everyone on Facebook, everyone on LinkedIn, everyone on YouTube, and then in 3 weeks from now, hearing the audio only version, encore edition on ERT Radio. So thank you to
Okay.
Ron for being our second home for so many years. Knight, what is the it's marblet.bandcamp.com.
Mhm, mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, and you can also go to just marblet.com, and that'll has the links to all the places, Bandcamp and Spotify or whatever else.
Okay, so I'm gonna put that one up, and then I am going to put up just the marblet.com. What is happening?
Crazy
Uh,
technology stuff. That's what's happening.
yeah, I have upset the taskmasters at times, so they make life extremely. And thank you, Ronald. Thank you, and thanks for tuning in tonight and staying with the new branding, which I've taken quite a journey over the past 7 years because I have so many interests and love to do so many things, just like Knight does so many different kinds of music. And now we're going to get into that. I'm going to put this away for now because Knight, you have been a constant student. So you have worked with big groups of industry people and indie musicians. So although you work fairly solo and in isolation, as a student, your collaborations are very much in the world of the classroom and the learning and the gathering with people. And you did that, and then you went into some work with Brian Eno, just brilliant. So some study. So tell us about your sort of musical education the past, I don't know, decade or so.
Wow. Well, the the thing is the most wonderful thing. That was actually Don, who is, I guess he's still listening, I don't know, has suggested or let me know that was teaching this songwriting course online. This was back in January. So we both took that course, and it was just, it was at a place called I forget the name of the website, but it's pitched as a songwriting course. And what it really was just a course in, listening and being creative. It was just wonderful. I mean, you could take it into any discipline of the arts, and use his ideas because he's probably my biggest hero. He's such a genius. I love him. So that was great. He would have exercises that we would do every week. It was a month long. Sundays, 2 hours, he'd be right there in his studio. And I don't know how many people were taking the course. I'm sure there were thousands because you couldn't see the rest of the students, but he was there live talking to you and giving you assignments and talking about his thought processes on things. And then on Wednesday, he would come in again. We'd have another hour or so. He'd take Q&A and stuff. And then Saturdays, he wouldn't be there, but all the students would get together and, present their homework assignments in little breakout groups. So it was just incredibly inspiring. It was wonderful. And it kind of led me to, my idea was this year I would do 3 little EPs that were kind of inspired. School of Song, that's right. schoolofsong.org was the website. And they have, every month they have different songwriters teaching different classes there. And they've had some pretty interesting people. But anyway, so yeah, the idea was, first I'll do an EP that's an instrumental. Then the one that I'm working on now that I was supposed to have out or was going to have out in June, which is more of a vocal thing. And then another third one by the end of the year, all based on the principles that we learned in this course, or that, I knew just from reading stuff that Enos put out. So he's an incredibly thought-provoking person. I love reading things that, interviews with him and things like that. So very, very inspiring. Yeah.
That's cool. Cause you are, you were dating and helping to run and then married a woman who owned a bookstore. But it was all about books, and you're a voracious reader. And I know you read a lot of books about rock and roll biographies, the music industry. We got into some pretty cool stuff. Like we read John Cage's Silence. We got into some pretty ambitious stuff.
Really good. Yeah.
Yeah. And that was part of, I guess this is a good time to talk about this before we talk about our musical collaborations. Over the years, we've had a 2-man book club, which is really kind of cool. So I've written down, just to go quickly through them, Perfume by Patrick Siskin, we read. Book, We read Jitterbug Perfume by Tom Robbins, who we just lost recently.
Yeah, great book.
I mentioned John Cage's Silence. The Road, Cormac McCarthy, where you and I realized as much as alike as we are, where we would be, the apocalypse would where we would kind of bifurcate, because you're like, dude, one day without my iPhone, and I would be, and I was like, no, I could do this. I could do this if I had a reason. That's what I love. Cormac McCarthy. I love all of his stuff, and I'm going to revisit No Country for Old Men, and I love Blood Meridian and just all of it. But I was like, no, if I had someone to protect, if I had a reason, I would be tenacious about going, and I wouldn't miss that. I'm such a Luddite anyway. That I wouldn't miss the technology at all. But I often think too, and you and I probably talked about this, and I know it's dreadfully heavy, but if I had lost everyone, I would not press on just to press on in an apocalyptic, purely violent, chaotic world. I think I would just go in the woods somewhere and meditate till I, stop eating and meditate till I pass. So that was a really interesting part of the book. And it was very much, I think The Walking Dead owes to it. I think so many of those apocalyptic, that whole, and who are the Walking Dead, right? Who are really the zombies? And do you kind of feel the same way? Would you do it just to War of the Worlds? Tim Robbins is down in the basement. You know what I mean? Survivalist.
Yeah, I think so. Because I remember years ago, this guy I work with, somehow or another, we were talking about, if you found out that, the world was going to end tomorrow or whatever, what would you do? And I was like, man, I'm going to a beach and I'm going to sit there and I'm going to breathe and I'm going to just like pull in the whole thing. He's like, man, you're crazy. I'm going out to the strip clubs and I'm hitting the bars. And I don't know, man. No, you got to get in touch with everything and just kind of get it right, So yeah, I think I would. I think I would too.
I just saw someone, oh my gosh, I want to say it was Jeff Goldblum, but it wasn't Jeff Goldblum. I just saw a clip of an actor on Graham Norton, and he was talking about he was in Hawaii when they had, you remember several years ago, they had they sent out the text accidentally that like nuclear bombs were like coming into Hawaii.
No, I don't remember that. Well,
that was like probably like 3 years ago. And the actor's like, okay, I got the word. And I'm like, okay, like we're going to die in like 10 minutes. So I was talking to my assistant and she's like, what should we do? Like, who should we call? And he's like, we got 10 minutes. Like, just like sit and be, we're in Hawaii or whatever. And Graham Norton was like, well, then of course it didn't happen. So like, were you relieved? And he was like, no, actually, like, I wish I could remember who the hell it was. It wasn't Ewan McGregor. It wasn't Benjamin Cumberbatch. God, I can't remember. And he was like, part of me was a little disappointed.
Yeah, I was ready
I had spent those 10 minutes and I was so zen I was just so zen, and I was like, okay, cool. I've had a terrific life. Is this how it's gonna end? It's gonna end. And then it didn't end, and it was like, and it wasn't, oh God, it wasn't Colin Farrell. I just can't remember. If anybody out there knows the clip I'm talking about, please help a guy whose brain is starting to go soft.
Put it in the chat, as they say. Well, you know what that reminds me of is the very last episode of Seinfeld, or not the very last, but at the very end of Seinfeld, they're flying in this plane and it looks like it's going to crash. You know, the main characters are on this little Piper plane or whatever, and they're all panicking. Oh, you know, no. And Kramer, you know, Michael Richards is going, I'm ready. You know, he's like, bring it on. It's like, yeah, you just kind of got to get in that kind of mindset, you know, for something like that, I suppose.
Yeah, what an interesting exercise where you're like, okay, this is it. And this is, I truly believe this is it. And so, wow, that's that's like having that practice for the end, like a legitimate practice to go, okay, I've been there, I've done that. So,
you know, it's, and not to interrupt, but you know, it's funny. I was watching there was a George Harrison documentary. I forget which one it was, but at the end, his wife Olivia was talking about, you know, that George used to say that one of the important things about the spiritual path is that it prepares you for the inevitable death that you're going to have. And I thought, so that she was talking about how at peace he was when he passed. So I think that kind of ties in with what you're saying there.
Absolutely. Tanya just said hello. I'm glad.
Hi, Tanya. Yeah, I saw it.
For new people watching, that's my beautiful wife of 27 years. And Knight, you and Tanya collaborated on some meditation stuff where she did the vocalizations and you did the music. That's some really terrific stuff. But Tanya's such a devotee of Ram Dass. She listens to his lectures almost every night when she goes to sleep and all. And Neem Karoli Baba, his guru, she's had visitations with him, which has been really cool. And he said death should be easy.
Yeah.
Dying should be easy. It should be the easiest thing. And I've always kind of aspired to that. Like, make sure I do what I want to do every day. There's now being 56 years old, I know there's no way I'm going to write all the books I want to write. There's no way all the things in the scraps of paper and the folders and, you know, pasted on bulletin boards all around the room and all. I'm just not going to get to all of it. Right. And time will dictate and go, no, this is the one you have to work on right now. And you've probably written easily over 100 songs, I would imagine. Do you kind of feel that same way? Like, okay, the clock is ticking on me little, and I might not write everything I want to write, but I will write what I want to write in the moment or speaks to me.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, a couple of things about that are funny is that I don't anymore, but for a while I had my folder icon for all the music stuff I was working on was a clock, just to remind myself that the clock is ticking. You have to do this stuff if you're going to do it. But you know, then again, you get caught up in life and you kind of forget about the time thing because, you know, time is whatever it is. But yeah, I think to me that one of the things that really helped me prioritize things, and it's a reason why, you know, I was taking a course learning music production and stuff like this for a while. But again, my friend Cliff, who so many wise words, he makes jewelry, as you saw those little things from the Staying Home to Make Music Stay Home cover, but he also makes jewelry, really beautiful jewelry. And we were talking one day and he said that, you know, I think that the way I feel about making this artwork is that everybody needs some kind of beauty in their life. So I make these things that I think are beautiful for me. And if somebody else likes it, well, you know, that's great. That's wonderful. And if somebody wants to pay me for it, even better. I'm happy to, you know, to sell this stuff. And if I could make a career out of this, that would be fantastic. But you know what? I'm not going to change anything about what I do just to meet those kind of ends, because that's not the goal of it. You know, the goal is trying to make sure you do the things that are important to you. And those are the priorities that you have to, you know, put out there. So I just love that. And that really paralleled with my thinking, you know, about, you know, writing songs or whatever, that, you know, it doesn't really Nothing really matters. Was it somebody said I'm an optimistic nihilist, and I think that's a great, kind of term. It's like, yeah, it doesn't really matter, but yeah, just enjoy it and do it, do your thing.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Yeah.
sorry, I got off on a tangent there.
Oh no, it was not a tangent at all. I totally set that up, and that was terrific. And we very much vibe with that, right? So I do so much work for hire, which is not my own. Although in a way it is mine because I created, or I have a hand in creating, and I did a whole episode on work for hire, and it was like, if you absolutely need the credit, this isn't for you. But it's a shame because you're missing out. And you've done work for hire. You did plenty of work hire for me. Now we're friends, and you were very much part of the theater company, so it was a collaboration. It wasn't I call you every 3 years and go, okay, you have 6 weeks, and here's what I can pay you.
This is what I need.
And do this thing, and it was very collaborative. But I feel that kind of same way, especially with my novels. People will go like, "Oh, I don't like you that you write in the Scottish dialect," and it's like, okay, skip those parts, or this isn't for you. That's cool, but there's something about it's I think about musicians who are in bands where it's compromise, big arenas, and when they have enough scratch, they build these home studios and they do solo projects that they don't over promote, but you can get it if you're looking for it. I love that. I love that balance. Jim Carrey, of course, the Zen Master. Thank you so much.
That makes sense,
right? Of course it was. Yeah, it makes total sense. Oh my goodness, thank you. I am in your debt. So, Knight, I want to talk about something before we go quickly through our projects and let people know, the breadth and scope of what we've done, which is what truly is amazing, how many different styles. I talk a lot about AI, and I talk a lot about generative AI from my particular perspective, primarily as a writer. Now it's getting into filmmaking and all of that. It's getting into podcasts where it's all created by AI. So let's put all that aside, because you're working on self-generating music. You studied the work of real pioneers like Brian Eno, right? Music for airports and music for hospitals, I think. Real nice experimental stuff. Yeah. So take us through that from the musicians, because I forget his name, but he's got Rick Beato, right, who blew up. He was a music teacher that now interviews all these kinds of big names. So he's doing things like, okay, let's break this down, and how can we tell this is AI, and can I tell, like they'll say, hey Rick, listen to this song, is it real AI? And I guess there was a band that was getting tons of downloads, and then the people came out and said, this is all AI, man, from the photos to the music. So where is that AI created self-generating line, and where do you kind of stand in all of it as an artist?
Well, it's kind of confusing to me a little bit too, to be honest. But this last EP that I did was instrumental. It was just 5 songs of self-generated music, and I got the idea for Brian Eno's kind of thing. And it's funny because Milli Vanilli 2.0, because being someone who records at home without a band, I a lot of times consider that the computer is my band. For instance, I mean, I can play bass and guitar and stuff a little bit, but I can't really play drums. So I have programs that will generate a drum beat. And I think of it as, if I were in a band and here's the drummer, I'll say, okay, here's what I'm playing, play something that goes with it. And then I can adjust it and say, no, don't hit the cymbal there, do this. And it's the same thing with the software. You can say, okay, this is what I want you to do. So I tend to think of this kind of self-generating stuff more along the lines of the John Cage stuff, like that we read the book Silence, where he'll have, say, a piece that's really just a set of instructions. And say you've got 2 piano players and a xylophonist or whatever, and it'll be, the instruction for the first piano player is, you have to play, this is in C, and you can only play the 1 chord and the 5 chord, and you can play them at any tempo in any order that you want. And then the second piano player, he says, anytime you see the first guy blink, I want you to hit, an E note. Just hit this note each time on anywhere on the keyboard. And then the xylophone player, just count to 10 in your head and, then play something like this. So you have this stuff that could go on for an hour and it might be completely cacophonous, but then there'll be moments where it all kind of gels together. It's very, very beautiful. And the thing that Eno was saying about that was that at this point, the important thing to have as the composer or as the producer of the thing is judgment, to know which is the best thing to keep from it all. He looked at it, he kind of compared it more to where traditional song writing and arrangement is like architecture, where you have a plan and you build a building, and that this was more like gardening, where you plant something and as you watch it grow, you go, well, let me trim that here and let me trim it there. So I think that has it's not like it doesn't have a great sense of this is a wonderful performance or a wonderful composition, but as an experiment or as an exercise, it has incredible value, I think, as opposed to just AI, where you say, give me a song that sounds like, these are the Beatles if they were recording today, they've got stuff like that. Right. So I think that's kind of a difference there, that if you're approaching it from an experimental or educational standpoint, as opposed to a standpoint to where you're trying to say, this is my, production that I've done, and it's really just all AI. I don't know.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Right? Exactly. Yeah, like you whistle into a microphone and it does a composition. You go, "Hey, I'm a songwriter." No, you're not. Right. You're a whistler. You're a whistler. The computer is the songwriter. The big litmus test for me, and I was thinking about this. Right? You already mentioned William Burroughs. Right? He and Geisen did the cut-up writing.
Right. Yeah.
So there was source material. So that was generative. Like we didn't talk about it that way, but now looking back on it, it's a database of all the stuff in the world, and you pick and choose, and and even those weird old ransom notes, like in the old Columbos and all, where you cut out the phrases
with the magazine thing.
Yeah. Oh yes, and Sherlock Holmes goes, "Oh, I know this typography. This is from the London Times," and or this is from this is from Sussex Downs. So we know that, and so I was thinking about that.
I'm sorry, you just reminded me that what I should have mentioned earlier, that, and you'll love this, I think, but there's in the software that I use for recording is called Logic, and there's a thing, like say I could play in a little chord progression, whatever it is, and then I can put a little, not an effect, but something on it that's called the probability gate, which I just love the name of that, the probability gate. And I can say, only play 17% of the notes that I just played, and play them in a random order. So things like that are just really, really cool. And I just love the name probability gate. So
that is very cool. Now they are, AI's with us, and it goes from people going, you know what, Joey, it can do it faster. It can do better than you. Oh, and by the way, it's generative, but nothing you do is original because it's all been done before. I happen to agree with that. I disagree with that. Next week, I'm doing a solo show. So instead of creative conversations, it's creative communications. I'm going to do vision and voice. Artists, true artists, have unique vision and they have a unique voice. And I think that's the AI. You can tell the voice, and there really is no vision because they're being told what to generate. And because that's what a prompt is, it takes away the vision. You know what I mean? Which is interesting. Me right now in my career as a teacher and a mentor and someone who talks about this stuff publicly, it's where is the material coming from? So the fact that the big boys, the big tech giants went out and just, I don't want to use the word that I want to that begins with R and ends with A, but mined, okay? But they really did the other thing, right? Mine these databases of existing works without any permission, and that's what's being generated. That's a little sketchy to me. So with the probability gate, you're generating the work, and then you're saying, this is what I would like you to do with my work for me, because you can better do it better, faster, and more efficiently. That's still your creative loop.
It's not loop. It's just like the composition, instead of being notes on a scale, it's a set of instructions, which is a little bit different, but still it's a different kind of composition. Yeah.
Yeah, and we're in it, and if we're going to continue to do it, like, so my son Jeremy, who you've known Jeremy for a long time, you've
Oh,
acted as a
yeah.
mentor to him. So again, thank you.
Oh, no, love Jeremy.
And Jeremy's about to start his junior year in the composition program at Berklee College of
Berkeley.
Music. Kicking butt, starting to find
Fantastic.
his vision and voice now as an artist, which, you know, as his dad and as his mentor and former director, and, you know, taught him his first few guitar chords, is so wonderful to see where a student really emerges into an artist. And but they are teaching AI.
Yeah, at Berkeley. Yeah.
You know, the uses of it, the not proper uses of it, that it's
They seem
out
to be
there.
very
They're gonna encounter it.
responsible about
Yeah.
it. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good.
So I think that's what we need to do. So,
Well, it's just another tool, you know, it's another
yeah.
tool. It's just that, you know, and everything's scary. The new tools are always scary, aren't they? You know, so
Yeah.
I don't know, but we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see.
It's just that, you know, I always get hung up on that morality thing, and really the generative graphical AI is just horrible, where it's actually taking artists' images and putting them together. And
Did
the
you
better
see the
that
one
got, go ahead.
recently? There's the one with Paul McCartney singing to Phil Collins in the hospital, which is just a total fake thing. But,
Yeah,
you
then
know,
there's that. Yeah, the
yeah,
videos,
so
the deep fake videos.
crazy
Yeah,
stuff.
which is crazy. My brother Chris, you must have met Knight
Hey,
at
Chris. Yeah,
some
how you doing?
points. Yeah,
Yeah.
so cool. Chris, thanks as always for checking out the show. Knight, I want to go really quickly here. We got about 15 minutes left. I want to go really quickly through our collaborative works, because
Okay.
then there's a couple more questions I want to ask you that I think the audience will find very interesting.
Okay.
So moving on. So we were developing a relationship. I quickly became an admirer of your music. Like I said, I reviewed both of your first two albums very highly. Became a really big fan, and I got an opportunity to do a musical, Sad Mad Glad Live, based on some books by Jim Strawn and another fella. They really kind of blew up big. That's Jeremy, speaking of Jeremy,
That is Jeremy
in high
right there.
school,
Yeah.
and that's Maggie. And they went and did a tour, and we got a really nice grant from Target Corporation for all the music. I was just, when I was looking for images for the slideshow, I was like, oh my gosh, we got money from the West Virginia Commission on the Arts, and we got from the Humanities Council, and yeah, played a bunch of shows, and these two toured, and I was their roadie and director and producer and manager and director, and would put up and tear down the set, and they were wonderful. And that was our first collaboration, which was awesome.
Was that the first one? Okay. You know, and I love that, because I love your lyrics in that, you know, everything about the attitude, and just everything was so positive with that. I just absolutely loved working on that. It was a lot of
Yeah, and we
fun.
got to do some cool stuff. We did some real sort of rock, you know, good heavy backbeat guitars, get the kids up on their feet and jumping and clapping. Some soft shoe, so they
Yeah, that's
have the
right.
straw hats and the
What was
yeah.
the audience for this? Was it grade school kids? Was it for
Yeah, it
yeah.
was primarily grade school, so it was
Yeah.
that, and they did the tortoise and the hare, and they told different stories, and it was all about the anatomy of your attitude. That was the
The
big
anatomy of
rocker.
your attitude. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was the big stadium piece, kind of. So
Yeah.
then we moved on. We did two murder mystery musicals.
Yeah.
Sponsored by, we were given grant money to do these by the Marion County Chamber of Commerce. Tina, who's since moved on, but so we did Love is a Heart Full of Bullet Holes. I wrote the book and the lyrics, and then you wrote the music. And this was pretty classic 1920s, 1930s, 1940s. We stuck pretty close, but then the show was so popular. We did so many gigs. People loved the characters that we got to do a sequel. Like, how many musicals are there? Like, Phantom of the Opera has a terrible sequel. They just,
I didn't
there
even
aren't
know
too
that,
many
really.
musical
Yeah.
sequels. But we got to do Gumshoes Never Cry, but Coppers Sometimes Do.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the cool things that spawned a whole, like, sort of little cottage industry for us was we were the Mystery and Mania in-house theater company for Weston State Hospital, known more popularly, but also more controversially as the Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum. So it says Tala there. So I believe we debuted this one there. But we still did get money from the Chamber of Commerce. So we did that show there too. And this one, we did a real 1950s rock and roll number. We did a gangster rap number, but not a gangster in the sense of, Compton and all of that, but a gangster from the 1940s. Yeah. This little snap of a girl, Cody, who just killed it, played this little gangster with a big, like the little gangster from, and I patterned, absolutely, I did. I patterned that character for her on the gangster from the old Bugs Bunny cartoons.
Oh, yeah?
He wore the big tall fedora, and he had he'd say, "All right, you mugs.
You might, Rabbit, you might."
Yeah, and that was sort of Josh Brooks's character.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of homages. I mean, I watched Maltese Falcon, and I watched Casablanca, and I watched so much film noir to do these. And then I played the gumshoe Dirk Mansman, and from there we got so we did a sequel to a musical, and then we took the characters from the two musicals, especially Dirk, and created Dial M for Madman, which was an escape room that Dirk was sort of centered in. There I am as Dirk, and our dear friend Jonathan Edwards playing the Madman. And then, Knight, you also did the music for our escape room Blackbeard's Quest, The Last Days of Charles Vane.
The pirate stuff was real interesting to do too. I love, one of the things I really love is that you would take me on these journeys into these styles of music and stuff that I would never explore on my own. I would never do, and hadn't even thought about how would you do that. So it was a great learning experience for me to kind of go, okay, let me listen to this kind of stuff that I've heard peripherally, but now let me really listen to this and try to recreate some of that or make something in that vein, which is wonderful.
And you always rose to it. I would say, okay, this needs to be like as close as possible too, but we don't want it to be. And that was them. So I'm going to skip this and then I'll come back to it. But you did, and we did win an award for it, which was awesome. But you did the music for an independent film, 32-minute film that I wrote, directed, and also was a character. And Jeremy was in that, which was great. Some members of the theater company were in it. And I said to you, I need this piece. I'm going to slow it down. This guy has a total meltdown because of this sort of drugged out, sort of faux spiritualist, this director, just makes him crazy. And he goes nuts, and he pulls the sock out of his Speedo and throws it at him, and the whole thing. And I said to you, I would really love to do this in slow-mo, like Chariots of Fire. So you wrote this great piece called Cherry Drops a Choir. And it had a little bit of that percussive and yes, but not, and just so you always rose to it, man. It was just awesome. Awesome.
Thanks.
So let's go back to this was 32 minutes, but you did a full length.
Yeah, Megahertz, which was really, really cool. That was actually, my cousin was the writer on that movie, and she actually ended up starring in it as well. She had told me that she was looking for someone to do the score that was like Brian Eno. I think Apollo was the album that she said, and she knew I was interested in that, had been doing some work kind of in that vein. And so it was just fantastic. Like, it was mostly working with, I think I used to think of it as working with a lot of untamed frequencies, because you've got the, in a sense, the mad scientist kind of thing. And, you think about Tesla coils and the electricity and things like this. So that was really, really cool. And it was interesting because it was about 90 minutes long. I think at one point it was almost 2 minutes before they had edited it down. But so many different pieces, and trying to, come up with motifs that could work through the for different characters throughout the film, but having them different each time, and still working in, like you said, an ambient and yet electronic kind of mode of stuff. It was really great. It was a great experience. And I used to think it's something I always wanted to do was to work on a film, something like that. And now I'm thinking though, man, I don't know if I have enough energy to spend on something like that again, because it was a lot of work. It was a lot of fun work. But yeah, it was great. It was great. And learning more about Nikola Tesla was incredible. That was a great experience learning about him too. So, and great actors in the film as well. Yeah.
I love it so much. And HBO did a wonderful miniseries called Chernobyl. And the composer went to nuclear power plants and recorded and sort of constructed the score. And I will say that you sort of precursed that with Megahertz.
Really?
Because the way you
Cool.
use the guitars and some of the sound, I still do very much. I'm not just blowing smoke. It's not my nature at all.
You.
I do listen to every probably 4 or 5 months. I pull out the Tesla soundtrack and listen to it, and when I'm doing my work and doing my stuff. So I want to go back. This is really our this is our big one. 3 Gothic doctors and their sons. When we got hired at Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum, or if y'all prefer Tala or Western State Hospital, when we got hired, I had the opportunity to write all brand new material. We had the murder mystery musicals where you could pick the end, sort of like the movie Clue. The audience voted. There were 4 characters who could have legitimately done, and I wrote 4 legitimate endings. And so I was like, well, okay, so we're in this mental institution, this former mental institution. I need to write something Gothic. I need to write a horror piece. I have to. And so basically it's what if one very ambitious, brilliant scientist had the journals of Dr. Jekyll, Dr. Moreau, and Dr. Frankenstein. And that's the 3 Gothic doctors, and their sons are, of course, their prodigy. So it has a lot of themes. So we did it originally as a 2-hander. Robbie Justice, anybody, if you saw Robbie on the show about a month ago, it was Robbie and I played all the sons, and Robbie played the 3 doctors, and then the doctor who got all the journals. There were no women in the show, whatever. So it was sort of a conspicuous absence of women because these men usurped the power of God and of women to procreate, creating these monsters. And I'm really excited to see Guillermo del Toro's new Frankenstein, which it took him over a decade to bring to the screen correctly. Thank you, Joe. That was a college roommate of mine. Chuck Regan painted that cover for us, and I created this as the novel. I think I probably told you all this, and we're running short on time, so I don't want to say too much. But I was writing a Sherlock Holmes novel, which I did write, but I chickened out and got total stage fright. And I was like, what am I going to write? I'm like, not ready. Like I have to study more. I'm not ready to write Sherlock Holmes. And so I wrote a novelization of this, but it was picked up during the pandemic on Stage 32, which is a big industry networking site. Producer, Shadow Dragoon Mahai, this was probably about 4.5 years ago, came and said, I'm really interested in this piece. And I sent it to him, and he said, I'd love for you to expand this, like make it twice as long. I said, I'd love to put women in it, and get those point of views, the Bride of Frankenstein, as it were. And we have been working on that. I've now been hired as the director. I've done all the storyboards, and it's going to be quite expensive to produce because it's something called virtual theatrical. So when this happens, guys, when it does happen, and hopefully it'll happen next year, it will be filmed cinematically using multiple cameras, robotic cameras, people behind cameras, all during Tech Week. And there will be cameras set up during the performances. It will be presented as a live theater piece where a select audience will be able to come in and actually be our live audience. And it will be streamed internationally to anyone who wants to see the live theater production. And then it will have a short run, indeterminate, 1, 2, 3, 6 performances. Those will be filmed. And then it will be cut together into a purely cinematic experience that will also be offered. So that's very cool. Knight, I came to you last year and we got to get the band together, so to speak, and you wrote some new music for it. I came up with some new, so we're very excited. And of course, Knight's name is there in the same type font, in the same type size as mine, because
thank you.
yeah, well, only fair fair and true. The music brings my lyrics and the book very much to life. So, so guys, I'll keep telling you about that, but I'm excited, and the production company's making some nice strides in a lot of areas, and it's a difficult time to fund projects in the industry, and LA's having their problems and all that. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you. So Knight, it's not a career, it's a hobby. Can a hobby be a life's work? And you're somewhere, you've been paid, you're a professional, but what are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's funny that was a thing that when I was trying to study the music production for licensing music and getting it into, media productions or whatever, it almost sounded like an ultimatum. The guy who was running the thing said, if you're not interested in making this a career, you can just keep it as a hobby. It's either going to be a career or it's just going to be your hobby. And I was thinking, well, I don't really, it would be great. Like I said before, it'd be great to have this career, but that's not my goal, So I always think of writing songs, for lack of any other kind of term, as this being, I'd call it like a life's work of stuff. This is just, the stuff that I'm creating, and whether I'm actually have a job doing that or not doesn't make it any less valid, I don't think. Or I felt like hobby, there's nothing really derogatory about hobby, but it almost sounded like career or, hobby. And I don't see it that way. So I just think that it's important that, if you're doing what you love, it can be more than just a hobby, it can be, but it doesn't have to be a career, I guess is what I'm saying.
Absolutely. I think of a more spiritual, theological way to put it is vocation, avocation. And avocation is actually the prettier word.
It is a prettier word. That's true.
Yeah, it's a wonderful word. And I have worn so many hats. Some of my work, I go, you know what? I don't care if anybody buys a single copy. I am compelled to write this. And then there are things that I do work for hire in the industry or my acting career where I go out there and I'm blessed to make a pretty good bundle of money when I do those things. And they have different parameters. But then there's mostly the middle ground where I'm just a working artist. Creating work that sells, and I get my royalty checks, and every once in a while out of the blue I'll get a big royalty check as something hit a little or something. A theater company toured one of my shows for 6 months and suddenly go to the and it's like, oh, am I getting my little check from Dramatic Publishing? It's the 6th month mark, and you open it up and you go, oh, whoa, there were productions and this is cool. But I don't at this point I'm a storyteller. Because people get hung up on all the hats I wear and my different modalities. And are you an actor? Are you a director? Yeah, I'm a storyteller. And they're all just expressions. It's one garden, with lots of flowers. And I really don't think about if people buy the flowers, if they appreciate the flowers, if they smell them, if they notice them. As long as they don't trample them too much.
As long as they don't trample them. Yeah.
So that's pretty good. And one last thing, I have 2 words for you, sir, before I let you go. And these 2 words are Yoko Ono.
Oh, well, this is a much better segue than you may have even intended. Because I probably told you I'm reading this biography on Yoko, and it's just wonderful. It's a great little book. But she had, you're talking about flowers being trampled upon. She had she was an artist long before she met John Lennon, right?
Yeah.
And so she would do all these conceptual pieces. And one of the pieces that she had was called Painting to be Stepped Upon. And what it was, she would set a blank canvas down at the entranceway of the gallery or whatever, and people would come in and walk across it as they go through. And then at the end of the evening, that's the painting with all the different footsteps and things like that. So trampling can also create something, maybe. I don't know. But yeah, she's so interesting with her stuff. I just, reading this book, and I knew a little bit about her, but one thing that stuck with me, I was reading about just the other night, where she had a piece that was called Earth Piece. And all it was like John Cage, is just an instruction. It said, listen to the sound of the earth turning. And that was, her directive. And so you, as the viewer, or you're a participant in the art, in the creation of this piece of art. And I just love her way of thinking with that. I think she's gotten a bad rap. She's a curious little bird, but I think she's gotten a bad rap.
She is. she really kind of got rehabbed for me. She's in a wonderful couple of episodes about Mad About You.
Oh, yeah? I don't think I saw
Yeah,
those.
yeah. Paul gets she wants him to do a documentary for her, and it's a typical Yoko Ono, like it's like called Air or something. And I want to make a movie about Air, Paul, and I want you to film it. And he's like, okay. But they go to the apartment, and he sees the white grand piano from Imagine, and of course he sits down and he breaks the piano bench.
Yeah,
But as he asks Yoko, and Jamie slaps him for it, did Yoko break up the Beatles?
Oh, no. Right there. So they put that right in the show.
Yeah, and so of course she slaps him, but I think it was way more complicated than that. Way more to lay it on the doorstep of one person.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely.
Unfair. And what she did with the legacy of his music and putting out the acoustic, with Working Man.
Yeah,
Yeah, and then putting in the liner notes, putting all the chords for all the songs. Like, okay, let's just let another generation learn John's music.
Yeah, and and just all the shit she went through for being there. I mean, she would get death threats. She was racially slurred constantly, and it's just and she seems. So I always thought of her as being this very cold kind of but this is the front she had to put up. She's a very sensitive person, and just to be subjected to all of that is just it's very sad, but.
Yeah,
strong.
And knew how to handle and navigate him and bring out the best in him. And the Lost Weekend. I mean, the patience of Job. Okay, if you're gonna run off and you just can't handle reality, and Nixon's president, and okay, John, I'm gonna send you with my assistant because at least I know who you're going to bed with. And that was incredibly for all the women during the flower power and the she really walked the walk about, okay, this is what liberation is. This is what, if you love them, set them free. If they'll come back, they'll come back. So yeah, I am with you. So I'm glad we got the chance to talk about that. And we are out of a time. But thank you to the new viewers. Thank you to those who said, hey, I checked it out and I like what I saw. I came for the night. I'll stay for the Joey. That is cool because this is a real mission. Artist voices are somewhat getting lost. They're certainly getting suppressed by a lot of corners, especially the kind of artists and visionaries that I like to hang out with, who trod their own path. And so thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been fun. I really enjoyed it.
And we are going to give you the last musical word. So good night, everyone.